everyone. I'm Suzanne Hamilton, Director of the Ascension Counseling Center. You're watching Ascension Counseling Center's video newsletter where we talk about the services we offer and how you can benefit from them. Our goal is to cover topics that we hope will give you some helpful tips for happier and healthy living and for better relationships. And that means thinking about changing the way we're doing things and considering embracing a new way or a better way of doing things. In this episode, Lisa Weber Curry talks with Ava Gerald about coping with chronic pain. As part of our community groups, we're pleased to announce a new group to support adults living with chronic pain. If you or someone you know lives with chronic pain, this group could help. The group will meet every Thursday for 8 weeks, starting April 23rd. The sessions are from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. and cost $10 per session. You can call Ascension Counseling Center at 450-1162 to speak with Ava to get more information or to enroll. Please stay with us. We'll have Lisa's conversation with Ava Gerald right after this.
We see a lot of children that are actually being raised by their grandparents. There are so many resources that we can help you with to help you figure out what to do with this child, to help this child understand what his goal in life is. Having one little boy come in and hate his life and have a scowl on his face and not want to be there, and then a month or so later befriend him and come in and smile at me and talk to me and give me a hug, which those children don't do that very often. So by having that hug rewards me more than any paycheck that a person could give me. It's more fulfilling than anything else that job could possibly give me, by seeing a patient or a child or an adult's life completely turned around. Hi, my name is Lisa Lopez, and I'm a nurse at the Ascension Counseling Center.
Hello, I'm Lisa Weber Curry, Manager of Clinical Services at Ascension Counseling Center. I'm here with Ava Gerald, Licensed Professional Counselor, and today we will discuss the topic of coping with chronic pain. Hello, Ava.
Hi.
How are you today?
Doing well.
Good. It's a pleasure to have you here. So what can you tell us about coping with chronic pain?
Well, chronic pain is a condition that lasts longer than 3 months. So, as opposed to acute pain, which is less than 3 months.
Okay.
Often the source of the pain is difficult to discover and therefore difficult to treat. Pain has a bunch of different components. Biologically, pain is a signal that we've been hurt, physically hurt. Psychologically, we might feel that we're suffering, right? Depressed, anxious. Behaviorally, pain alters the way we move. We may limp. We may favor a limb.
Okay. Have difficulty getting up and getting around.
Right, right.
Okay.
Cognitively, or the way we think, we have to think about how we think about pain. Is it something that we can deal with? Is it something that we don't want to have happen?
Okay.
Right?
Is it something that's going to stay with us forever, and it's
Right.
always on our mind when we wake up throughout the day? Okay.
Spiritually, chronic pain can signal our mortality, bring us closer to the idea that we won't be here forever.
Okay.
And culturally, pain has been used to test a person's strength. For instance, guys might not feel like they can show pain.
Okay.
Moms with children, they don't have time for pain.
Okay.
So chronic pain can be treated medically,
Okay.
and the conditions could range from fibromyalgia, diabetic neuropathy, chronic bladder pain, migraines, arthritis, a wide number of pain causes for chronic pain.
Okay.
When we think about chronic pain and treating chronic pain, we might want to think about it like a car with 4 flat tires.
Interesting.
Right.
Tell us more about that.
So we have this condition. We've been diagnosed with chronic pain. Pain's been going on 3 months. That's a long time to be in pain.
Yes.
And all of our tires on our car are flat.
Okay.
So we've been diagnosed, whatever the diagnosis is, fibromyalgia, migraines, whatever that may be. So that puts a little air back into one of our tires.
Okay, so we now know what our problem is.
Right.
We're not just hurting for no reason at all.
Right.
So that tire has been filled up with air.
Right.
Okay, so that's one
That's
tire.
one tire.
Okay.
Now we're going to be treated for chronic pain, and so that brings pain management into the picture. And we may be on pain medications and that sort of thing. That fills up our second tire.
Okay.
So now we're getting a
So
little
now we got
better.
the front end of the car back and up. Normal. Okay.
But our last two tires sometimes don't get addressed.
Okay.
And that's the emotional component, dealing with all those thoughts, all those feelings from having chronic pain, being in pain all the time.
Those are the things that kind of determine how well we will do with this pain.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the fourth tire we can think of as a social component. Sometimes, because we're not able to do our normal activities, our family members may be frustrated with us. We may be frustrated with ourselves. We may be losing out on what we usually do. You know, we don't go to family functions because we can't climb those stairs.
Okay.
And so what we hope to be able to do is to learn some skills
Okay.
to cope with that emotional side, pump up that third tire,
Okay.
and some skills to deal with the people in our life, pump up that fourth tire.
Okay, so we're running on all four tires now.
And so now our lives, while it may not be back to pre-pain, you're going to be rolling down the road of life a little better.
Okay, good. More functional.
More functional.
Ready to deal with things. One of the things you brought up was the cultural aspect of pain. I think that's so important, and I want you to go into more detail. Explain to our audience what you mean by that in greater detail.
Well, culturally, we've all learned, you know, in our family and from society, television, music, we've learned how to feel pain in a way.
Okay.
Not from a physical standpoint, but from our thoughts, right?
Okay.
Pain hurts. We don't want to feel that way. Men may not be able, you know, the male population, it's kind of given that you don't want to be seen as weak.
So I guess when you say that, I think of this scenario. You know, a guy is hurting and there's some heavy lifting to be done. Maybe he's hurt his back in chronic pain and he can't lift it. But culturally we say to him, do it, work through that pain, feel it and get it done anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what happens? Then that leads us into a relapse where our pain is not manageable.
Okay.
And when our pain becomes not manageable, our thoughts go to depression, depressive thoughts, maybe anxiety, anger.
Okay.
You know, anger both at ourselves and the people requesting us to do it because they know we can. They know what our limitations are.
But then all of a sudden you start to realize I'm limited. And
Right.
then you feel less than, and that adds to the depression.
Right.
Okay. So
Right.
it becomes a cycle.
It's a cycle. And one of the things we talk about our thinking patterns, one of the things we need to think about doing is, how do we think about pain? How do we communicate that to our loved ones? You know, you can't see chronic pain.
Right.
It's not like you've got a big cut on your arm and you can say, look, I'm hurt.
Right.
Right?
And it's obvious to those who
Right.
notice you. Okay.
And so it's kind of like it's there, but it's not there. And so people tend to not be able to relate. And so people may think, oh, he just doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to go lift that item,
Every time
whatever.
there's something socially going on, he or she doesn't show up. They just don't want to show up.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And it's all because people can't visibly see that pain. For instance, in migraines or fibromyalgia, when your foot may be hurting intensely, but you're still moving, but it doesn't mean that you're comfortable enough to be in a social environment.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so even now we have this situation where we don't want to go and do things with other people.
Okay.
And now we've got the social aspect pulling in. If we're not interacting with our family, with our friends, now we're feeling isolated.
Okay.
And so when we feel isolated, we feel very alone. And we feel that this may never go away, that we may never be able to deal with this.
Start to feel hopeless.
Hopeless.
Okay.
And our spiritual component pulls in. You know, you maybe you don't feel like going on anymore, and that's a serious thing. But it's serious, but we can treat this.
Okay.
And that's the positive part of this.
That's the really important piece.
That's the
yes.
important piece, and that's what we do as counselors, is help people kind of think about, you know, once your life is going along and now you're diagnosed with chronic pain, now your values may change. What's important to you? What's important to you in your whole self?
Right.
And so we want to identify what those new values are. They may have changed, and that's okay.
Yeah.
In fact, that would be a very good thing.
Right, because you have to adapt and adjust to your
Right,
current diagnosis.
Once we know values, then we can start making goals. And goals are what makes us feel effective. Goals make us feel like our life is back on track.
I'm accomplishing something.
I'm accomplishing something.
Okay.
So we want to work toward goals.
Make our life worth living again.
And here we come into the pacing.
Okay.
How do we pace ourselves so we're not overdoing? So now we're not dropping back into that cycle of, I couldn't do it, I did too much, I'll never be able to do this, right?
Okay.
But there's a place where you can do just enough and you feel more effective,
Okay.
right? And that may be with work. Maybe you have to change your work schedule. At home, maybe you can't do 3 loads of laundry in one go. Maybe we can do 1 load of laundry and rest.
But who determines how much we can do when we're suffering from chronic pain?
We determine that.
The person who's diagnosed with it.
Experiencing
Okay.
chronic pain determines
Because that's
that.
very important. So often we lean to society or our family or our jobs to tell us how much we can do.
Right. And so guess what? We have to be in touch. We have to be able to label that pain. We have to be able to communicate to the people in our life, including our medical team,
Okay.
what our pain looks like. What triggers our pain? Is it weather? Is it too high expectations? Do we have too many expectations for ourselves?
Okay.
Like maybe I used to do 3 loads of laundry, but I can only do 1.
Okay.
Changing those expectations. Searching for meaning for our life now. You know, and that wraps back into your values, of course, but
Okay.
what's my purpose? And that's a soul-searching thing that we have to do.
Because all of a sudden, for some people, their purpose may change.
Yes.
Because, you know, you thought you were on the path to doing this, that, and the other. A lot of it may have required physical ability. Now, your purpose has changed, and you may have to realign it with something that's more mental ability than a physical ability.
And telling people no. And that's really hard for a lot of us. So we may have to say no in a gentle way. Maybe we can stretch out the things that we have to do over a time. So you know, being in counseling and dealing with the emotional aspect of all of that can help us kind of piece out how to do that, right?
Okay.
The other part is with pacing, it's exercise. A lot of time people with chronic pain don't want to exercise because it's painful.
Right.
So the trick is working with your medical team to determine how much activity is allowable for your diagnosis or your injury, and then doing little bits of exercise every day.
Okay. Building up that stamina and strength again. Okay.
Exercise does so many things for us. It gives us endurance, right?
Right.
Flexibility. So we're not stiff every time we get up off the sofa. We might actually be able to hold our body upright.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe we gain a little, if we've got neck injuries, we gain a little more motion.
Okay.
Right?
Range of motion.
Range of motion.
Okay.
It might help us lose weight.
Which
Weight is a big component of pain management, right?
Okay. And why is that? Why is weight so important to pain management?
Well, it's just easier to lift a smaller person, right? If your frame
Okay.
is smaller, you're not putting as much stress onto your physical frame.
Exactly. Okay.
Right?
I understand.
We Exercise releases endorphins. Those are our body's
Yes.
natural painkillers.
Yeah.
And so pain becomes less intolerable,
Okay.
right? Exercise can improve our sleep quality. Guess what happens when we sleep better?
We feel better.
We feel better.
Exactly.
Our bodies rebuild themselves during
It's
our
a restorative
sleep.
process.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So putting this exercise back in is difficult to do sometimes with pain management because we think we should go out and be able to walk around the block. Well, guess what? We may not. But we may be able to walk to the street,
To the mailbox.
to the mailbox.
Okay, great.
We may be able to walk through the store and do our grocery shopping. That may be the goal. And these are goals that we create for ourselves, right?
And every time we meet one of those goals, we feel better, and it influences us to set another goal and yet
Right.
another goal. And I think it's important to remember we have to set the goals based on our particular situation and diagnosis. I may be diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and you may be, but what you may be able to do may be greater than what I am. And I think that's very important, not to do the comparison.
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes, definitely. We are not alike. Nobody in this world is like me or like you.
Right.
And so the trick is to figure out what's enough, what's too much,
Okay.
right? Because we don't want to underdo exercise, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. We don't want to do less than what we are capable of doing because it doesn't benefit us.
Yes,
Okay.
and in fact, it kind of harms us because then we feel like we can't do things,
Okay.
that we become useless, right? And then that affects our purpose.
Okay.
So we need to build some exercise back into our daily activities.
I think when you talk about exercise, some people dealing with chronic pain may become nervous and say, well, you know, I didn't exercise before. I don't know what to do. But it's not just the individual. There's a team of people working with them, right?
Exactly. So if you're in pain management, you're going to have doctors,
Okay.
probably physical therapy somewhere along the way,
Okay.
right? Your doctor's going to let you know what you can and can't do for fear of re-injury. And your physical therapist will work toward that. So if
Okay.
you're in with a physical therapist, then they can help you decide how much is too much,
Okay.
right?
Okay. That's important.
Yeah.
And your physician usually makes the appropriate referrals for you, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. And if they don't, we need to ask, right?
That's important.
That's important.
I think that's where a patient advocate is really good. If you take someone along to the doctor with you who can jot down notes, because when you're being diagnosed, it sounds like, you know, it's kind of, oh, wow, that's all you hear and nothing else. So if you have somebody else there with you, a patient advocate, gathering all this information, writing it down, so when you get home and you've actually had a chance to process it,
Right.
you can look at the treatment plan.
Right. Which brings up better communication with our medical team, right? And by medical team, I want to include your family or friends who are helping you care for yourself. Your medical team
Your
is
counselor, your
who-
pastor.
whoever that is, right?
Right.
Medical team doesn't stop with the physician. Could be
Okay.
the physical therapist, could be the nurse, could be your pharmacist. The scope gets very wide there.
Okay.
One of the things that's very helpful is using a pain scale,
Okay.
and one that's pretty simple to decide where you fit on it. Because if you use a pain scale, my 8 on a pain scale would be very different from your 8,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
So if I can bring in a pain scale and say, this is the pain scale I'm using, and my pain has been at a 7,
Okay.
then the doctor, the nurses, the pharmacist, the therapist, everybody knows what 8 or 7 means to you, right?
Right.
That's good communication with our treatment team. Now it's
Okay.
not 7, it's just not a number up in the
It's
air.
not arbitrary. Okay.
Right. So, you know, communicating that pain level, understanding what your triggers are.
Okay.
Did you maybe do too much? You got a little carried away?
Foods are also
Food's
triggers.
a trigger. Weather's
Weather.
a trigger.
Okay.
Especially with people with arthritis or fibromyalgia.
Okay.
Just being able to communicate that to your treatment team so your expectations are proper. And guess what? If you're exercising on a daily basis, say you're walking every day and it's raining, you didn't fail because you couldn't go out in the rain, right?
Right. Right.
The weather affects you.
Yes. Exactly. And remembering that so
Remembering
you don't
that.
sit there and count it as a failure. One of the other things I noticed, what about stress?
Stress really, really increases chronic pain.
Okay.
But I mean, it makes pain for us who don't have chronic pain,
Right.
right? And not just physical pain. You know, we may feel pain in our shoulders and neck if we don't have chronic pain.
Right.
But we also feel overwhelmed. And if you're in a stressful situation, having some people to talk to, having coping mechanisms to deal with that, checking as you're thinking. You know, we all have unhelpful thinking styles.
Right.
Being able to identify that and say, oh, that's just a thought, right?
Exactly.
Dealing with that stress, dealing with the thinking styles is really, really important.
But would you say that's where counseling would really benefit anyone dealing with chronic pain? Because sometimes it's really difficult when you're in the midst of pain, you're in the midst of being overwhelmed and stressed out to identify unhelpful or irrational thinking patterns. So you need someone who's grounded to help you identify those things.
Yes. You need somebody there to vent to because maybe your family is tired of hearing you, right?
Because they're there with you 24 hours a day.
Right.
Okay.
Somebody who's not involved in your daily life can step back and say, you know, you're thinking about this in the wrong way. Let's reframe that. Let's think
Okay.
about things in this way. And that can be very helpful both for the person with chronic pain and their interaction with their family, their medical team, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
The other thing, you know, as counselors, we kind of deal with unhelpful thinking styles a lot. Black and white thinking, you know, wanting things to be only our way, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But there are some unhelpful thinking styles that are particular to pain management.
Tell us about them.
So one is catastrophizing.
Okay.
This is the over-dramatic, right? We all know people who carry a lot of drama.
Yes, we do. We do.
But now we're dealing with somebody who's had something happen to them. And so our bodies are built to, you know, our brains are built to say, oh, that could happen again. And we kind of magnify how awful it was, right?
Okay.
Our anxiety blows up and we get like over dramatic. We catastrophize the situation.
And we think
right?
it's going to happen in every possible situation
Exactly.
we encounter.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
Okay.
having somebody grounded to say, well, hang on a second. How did you handle this in the past? Were you successful? Who helped you? How did you manage? You know, that helps pull us back down and gets us to a place where we're thinking properly again.
And identifying resources that can help us get through it again should
Right.
it happen.
Right.
Okay.
Fear of re-injury is another unhelpful thinking style. You know, just because you tripped going down the stair doesn't mean you're going to do that every time,
Right.
right?
Okay.
But we don't want to hurt again. And that's what leads to that thought, you know, if I do this again, I'm going to be hurt. Hopefully with the help of physical therapy and with input from your physician and your team, you know the things to do and not do.
Right.
Learning from our pacing, we learn how much we can do, right?
Which is very important.
Right.
Okay.
And so that helps us lower that fear of re-injury. We can work around that fear.
And we can take a different avenue. If the stairs have been the cause of injury before and we haven't built that strength up, we avoid the stairs.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Another one is expectation of a cure. The fact is that many of these chronic pain, the sources of chronic pain don't have a cure.
Okay.
There's not a cure for fibromyalgia right now
Right.
or arthritis, right? There's treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not confuse the two, right?
Right.
We have treatment
that makes it livable. You can live with these conditions and still be functional.
But always searching for a cure keeps us focused on the future, right?
Okay.
So we're not living in the present, and we're not dealing with today.
Because it's that thought, I will be able to do this, I will go here when I have that cure, instead of living in the present moment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So having somebody who can orient us, right, pull us back into the present moment is critical for that. Critical for that.
Okay.
Another, along with that expectation of cure, is future despair. You know, if I'm suddenly looking at, if I'm 40 years old and I'm looking at the rest of my life to be in pain,
Okay.
that's pretty
It's bleak.
depressing. Yeah. So future despair is real, but we have to figure out some ways to start thinking about, what am I grateful for today?
Okay.
What are my blessings today? How can I find joy in my life today? Right?
Okay.
Counselors can help you do that, right? And I'm sorry?
No, I was just thinking, when you speak of future despair, it doesn't mean that you give up the possibility that there's a cure. It just means you live in the present moment, but you keep the faith that there may be a cure for it.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's definitely not giving up.
Okay.
It's definitely not giving up, but it's saying, what can I do today to make
Right.
my life better?
Okay.
Right?
Got it.
And if a cure, you know, their medicines come a long way. If a cure comes, then you're prepared.
Right. Because your body, you've done everything to condition your body for this moment in time.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And your mind,
And
because
your
that's a
mind.
big part of
And
it.
in your social circle,
Exactly.
right?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then finally, the other unhelpful thinking style is social disbelief. And we touched on this earlier. You know, people with chronic pain don't have a cut.
Okay.
It's hard to see. People tend to not believe us.
Okay.
And sometimes, because we're sneaky people,
Uh-huh.
we might start limping, so they do,
Right.
right? We might
That's
start
interesting.
kind of moaning if we lift something.
To make
so they
people
can
aware.
see, right?
Okay.
And so kind of thinking about what we're doing inside of our pain, if that makes any sense,
Okay.
and to make people believe that we're really there,
Right.
right? There's some better ways to manage that. We can we will journal, have a pain scale, so we can tell people this is what it's like, right?
Right.
People see it in writing, they tend to believe us a little better,
Right.
right?
Okay. So, kind of to summarize, there are effective ways of coping with
Definitely.
chronic pain.
Definitely.
And I think, you know, a lot of what you said involves effective communication with everybody that's in your treatment team, doctors, pastors, therapists, physical therapists, your family, friends, community. Meditating is also a great way.
Let me speak a moment about meditating.
Okay.
You know, meditation is absolutely essential for good pain management.
Okay.
We know that from studies.
Okay.
The problem is I don't know about you, but counting my breath is awful boring. And that's what they tell us to do, right?
Okay.
That's the typical. But let me just say, meditation doesn't end at just counting your breath.
Right. You can be still for a period of time. You can listen to meditative music. There are different forms. The goal is to find what works for you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Don't give up just at a breath.
Okay.
Art, music,
Right.
smells, things
Right.
that calm
Aromatherapy.
us. Aromatherapy, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't give up at breathing.
That's important. And I think the final piece to it is journaling, being able to write out what you feel and what you think. And that also, when you bring that journal to all of your treatment teams, they have something written down that they can follow and say, this is what this person has experienced. Oh, at this time in his life, he got better. Here he's getting even better. So they
Right.
know how to formulate your treatment
Right,
plan.
right. Journaling
Okay.
doesn't have to just be writing.
Right.
We can do voice journals. We can
Yes,
type on
because
the
that is
computer,
possible now. Right.
So
Okay.
don't let one person's idea of what's effective that doesn't work for you stop you.
Right.
Let's find different ways to incorporate that.
Okay. Great. So the big message here is there are ways to deal and cope effectively with chronic pain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much, Ava. You've been very helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. Coming up next, Suzanne is back with some important announcements.
Ascension Parish, a parish steeped in tradition. It's a place where generations of families have continued to enjoy a lifestyle that centers on community living and community celebration. It's a place where we care about each other and we care about ourselves. For more than 50 years, the Ascension Counseling Center has continued the tradition of helping individuals and families change behaviors and change lives. The Ascension Counseling Center.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. Remember, the group sessions on living with chronic pain that Ava and Lisa just spoke about begin April 23rd from 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m., and they run for 8 weeks. For more information or to enroll for the sessions, call Ava Gerald at Ascension Counseling Center at 450-1162. If you've been by Ascension Counseling Center in Gonzales recently, you may have noticed a construction project on the front of our building. And we're making changes so that we can better serve you. One of the things that we're doing is adding a separate waiting room for Ascension Counseling Center clients that will be separate from the waiting room we've shared with Gonzales Mental Health. And we feel that this waiting room will offer you a more intimate and relaxed setting. We're also expanding and moving the QOL pharmacy from the back of the building toward the front so that you can walk in and have direct access to it without having to stop at the front desk, call the pharmacist, and then have her come up front to meet you to give you your medications. Other changes are just going to update the building, make it fresher, make it more contemporary, and so we think you'll be really pleased with the changes that we've made. Another way we serve you is through this program, now in its 3rd episode. You can watch Ascension Counseling Center's video newsletter on Ascension 21 at these scheduled times every week. Sundays at 8 a.m., Wednesdays at 11 p.m., Thursdays at noon, Fridays at 7 p.m., and on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Or you can watch anytime on Ascension 21's YouTube channel, which can be found at youtube.com/Ascension Parish. We look forward to many more episodes where we can talk about what's available at Ascension Counseling Center and how our programs can help change lives. Next month's topics are anger management with Tatiana Curry and improving relationships with Stephanie Turner. Now that's it for this episode, and thanks for being with us. Please remember that Ascension Counseling Center is here by way of your support. We're a department of Ascension Parish government, and as such we're all parish employees. We're funded by a 2-mil property tax millage, which means that $2 from every $1,000 you pay in taxes goes to support our agency so that we can continue to provide free and low-cost mental health and substance abuse outpatient services to residents of Ascension Parish. We have 2 locations. One is in Gonzales at 1112 Southeast Ascension Complex Boulevard, which is off Worthy Road across from the courthouse and next to the health unit. And we have a location at 419 Memorial Drive in Donaldsonville, next door to Prevost Hospital. You can reach us at either location by calling 225-450-1016. You can also find us on the web at www.ascensionparish.net/MH and also on Facebook at Ascension Counseling Center. Thanks for your support, and until next time, from everyone at Ascension Counseling Center, thank you for watching.